So if a rectangular classroom has 72 seats, then it has a certain number of rows and a certain number of seats in each row. And they're asking us to find the original number of seats in each row. So I'm going to let that variable be the answer to my question. So I'm going to write n is going to represent the number of seats per row. Number of seats per row. And then I'm going to let r represent the number of rows. So if you take the number of rows and multiply by the number of seats per row, you get the total number of seats, which we know is 72. So I have r times n is 72. And then if it says if the seats were rearranged with 3 more rows, so that would be, 3 more seats in each row, so that's n plus 3, 3 more seats in each row, there would be 2 fewer rows, r minus 2. But there would still be 72 seats, so when I multiply these two together, I still get 72. Now I have 2 equations with 2 unknowns, and I just have to solve. So if I FOIL this equation right here, FOIL the left side, I get Rn minus 2n plus 3r minus 6 equals 72. But I happen to know that Rn is 72. So I'm just going to replace this Rn with a 72. 72 minus 2n plus 3r minus 6 equals 72. So I can subtract 72 from both sides and those go away. And now I have 3r minus 2n equals 6. So 2 variables, I need to get rid of one, I'm going to use substitution. I'm going to go over to my other equation and solve for one of my variables. Let's say I'm going to solve for r. You can choose either one. R would be 72 over n. And then I come back to this equation, the equation I was just working with, and I replace the r with a 72 over n. I can do a quick simplification here. 3 times 72 is 216, so this is 216 over n minus 2n equals 6. So if you think back to when we were solving the equations, whenever you had something in the denominator, an equation that had fractions in it, to get rid of the denominator, multiply both sides by it. So I'm going to multiply both sides of this equation by n. So now when I have to distribute this n to both terms of the parentheses. So when I do it to the first number in parentheses, the n's cancel and I just get 216. And then when I distribute to the n to the next thing in parentheses, I get minus 2n squared. And that should equal 6n. And now I have a quadratic equation. Everything's divisible by 2, so I'm going to divide out a 2, and I'm going to put everything onto one side of the equation. So I'm going to have n squared plus 3n minus 108 equals 0. So I divided both sides by 2, and then gathered everything onto one side of the equal sign. And it turns out that this quadratic factors to n plus 12 times n minus 9, which means that n equals negative 12 or n equals 9, but it can't equal negative 12 because remember n was representing the number of seats in each row. You can't have a negative number of seats in a row of desks. So n equals 9 has to be the original number of seats per row.